UN Women and UNICEF for coming to our rescue in Africa. This is wonderful. Wonderful that we have gone so far, and the disconnect which has been there before is now having a ripple effect positively for traditional leaders in Africa. What I'm saying is that involving traditional leaders in Africa with the involvement of COTLA, created by UN Women, we have really amplified the voices of the voices and the hope of the voiceless and the hopeless. We thank you because for recognizing our role, that we are always close to the grassroots, and this is a very commendable thing. Number one, again, the second point is that this is the lowest point we've ever been. The survey all over the places shows that we are the lowest point, and my colleagues, on behalf of COTLA, we want to have a turning point with this lowest point. The girls are out of school all over the continent, out of the 21 countries in southern Nigeria, south and eastern for that region, more than half are now out of school. The same thing happened with us in West Africa and Central. As a matter of fact, when we were launching our COTLA chapter, Nigerian chapter yesterday with the UN Women, we had an alarming statistics by one of the presenters there. So what I'm saying is that we have got so far, and this is the right time for us to come together and take the bull by the horn. I can never say enough of so much contribution, so much effort that has been put in to bring us alive. And we are willing, ready, and able to partner, to synergize with UNICEF. UN Women has been there for us, and UNICEF coming on board is just a win-win game for us. Let me at this point commend what the UN Women, they are outgoing, unfortunately outgoing, who wants to disengage by the end of this month, Madam Barrister Roberta Clark. She has been a game changer for our existence for over a year now. In fact, the monumental achievement we have been able to go so far, especially during this lockdown, and with the amazing intervention of all our efforts, it's been great and phenomenal. We want to partner and be friends with these two agencies. I know we'll be going down to demonstrate our integrity, because we want to close up and drive the narrative positively. You see, the leadership has been failing for some time in Africa because they have not been assigning what UNICEF, the United Nations, have been saying on health and education. Is so lamentable. We have to now take the bull by the horn, get involved. For some of us who are passionate about this, I have 7 girls. My daughters are 7 with only 2 sons. That's one of the reasons why I'm a stakeholder. Number 2, I lost my mother at a tender age. As a matter of fact, she got married at the age of 13. And after delivering me, the 3rd day she gave up from over bleeding. It could be so touching. That's why some of us could be so passionate about this. It's wonderful. But today, I never knew I could be alive. Not only being alive, I know I have a mission in this world to do something for human race, especially Africa children. I'm a product of, I won't say a victim, a product of a childless, a motherless baby at when I was only less than 4 days old. So early child marriage, female genital mutilation, and girls and women should be our priority. I'm committed to that. And we have to cooperate to operate. I can never talk enough of this. And God bless all of you. It's a winning team, and everybody is ready. My team is ready to join and be on the same page with the whole world. God bless UN Women. God bless UNICEF. God bless COTLA. And forward ever, backward never. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Royal Majesty, King Adedapo Aderemi, the Convener General of COTLA. Thank you very much. It's a winning team indeed. And we thank all our stakeholders and partners for involving traditional leaders in this amazing process in Africa, and for recognizing the role that you and all of us are playing already in our systems, but have come to put us together so we can put our hands on the wheel. And so much is being done, and so much has been achieved already since COTLA was formed. And I'm very proud of what we have been able to do together, and proud of you, my king, for your leadership.
Thank you.
I thank you. I will now humbly call on Mr. Mohammed Malik Paul, the Regional Director, UNICEF, East South Africa Regional Office, for his opening remarks. Mr. Malik, please.
Thank you so much, Queen Nana. Your Royal Majesty King Adepola Aderemi, the General Convener of the COTLA, Dr. Rida Bisanot, Head of Africa Union International Center for Girls and Women Education in Africa, Roberta Clark, my sister, Regional Director of UN Women in East Africa, Your Highness and Majesties, fellow participants, allow me to stand on the existing protocol and just highlight how delighted I am to have the chance to be part of this important initiative. As we know, before COVID pandemic, there was over 50 million girls who were not in school in Africa. Even girls who were at school before the pandemic had little chance of staying in school and completing their education. And the constraints that girls were facing range from those that they encounter at home, they encounter in the community, but they encounter also within the school system. The COVID-19 has come to exacerbate this constraint and threaten to reverse the gain we have recorded in the continent in the recent decade. For instance, we have noticed that prolonged school closures mean a heightened risk of violence and exploitation, as well as limited access to essential service that girls could get from school, whether it is on health, nutrition, and other social services. Furthermore, the pandemic has caused an increased gender-based violence. We have witnessed increased number of early marriage, increased number of teenage pregnancy, which in turn will negatively affect girls' ability to access education and learning in the short and in the long term. As we have learned from Ebola crisis in 2014 and 16, many girls may never go back to school as a result of the prolonged school closure, ultimately limiting their vocational opportunity and chance of breaking the cycle of poverty. As the pandemic evolved and school go through a process of reopening, but at the same time also a process of closing again, the education journey of girls is full of uncertainty. During this process, it's our duty to ensure that girls continue to have access and engage in the school system. Safeguarding the right to education of girls while ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and promoting lifelong learning opportunity is at the core of the Convention of the Child Rights and the Sustainable Development Goal. This crisis has given us a unique and timely opportunity to renew this commitment and reimagining education for girls in the long term by tackling the pre-existing barriers to their education and implementing innovative approach and solution for sustainable change. Traditional and religious leaders are in the critical position to bring these positive changes. With their power and influence on family, community, and decision maker, they can make and are already making a lasting impact on girls' life. Their engagement with community is a powerful lever to initiate transformation by promoting the importance of girl access and retention in school and addressing the cultural and social obstacle to girl education. Concretely, this means engaging in a constructive dialogue with community to raise awareness about the benefits of girls' education, to sensitize family, to combat child marriage and harmful traditional practices, and also to promote the integration of pregnant and young mothers into school system in order to ensure that no girl is left behind. Wide and strong partnership between key stakeholders, education authorities, community leaders, and development partners are critical to advance the girl education agenda. UNICEF in the Eastern and Southern Africa region is committed to doing its part and is eager to strengthen our cooperation with COTLA, with UN Women, with Africa Union and other partners to ensure that all girls return to school and in the long term achieve education equality for all children. On this note, I wanted to wish a great success to this meeting and just reaffirm our commitment to be with you in this noble journey. Back to you, Queen Ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Mohammed Malik, Regional Director of UNICEF, Isaro office. We thank you. The good news is that we did not stay aloof. Our partners, you've been there. Our supporters, you've been there. Our stakeholders, you all have been there to support us during this very daunting, stressful COVID-19 time that we had done so much, we have cleared so much ground, but this COVID had brought us way years back from wherever we have achieved the achievements and the gains we gained from girl child education, trying to fight against early child marriage, poverty reduction, everything that we had worked for, COVID had brought us years back. The good news is, yes, we have gathered around our grandmother's fire under the tree as religious and traditional leaders, and we are bringing our efforts and our abilities together with your support. And we know that we will certainly achieve so much. Thank you so very much. We will move on now to our first panel session. The topic is looking back at the engagement of traditional and religious leaders during the 2019 dialogue to fight for girls' right to education. And I will call Madam Philomena to introduce the moderator for this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Queen Nana. Allow me to inform all the attendants and colleagues, Your Royal Majesties, Highnesses, that we have interpretation services, and sorry that we didn't make that announcement earlier. If you go to the bottom of your screen, you will see an icon, interpretation. Do click the language that you're comfortable in. Allow me to call Hélène to make the same announcement in French. Hélène, please.
Bonjour à tous, hautes personnalités, majesté royale, altesse et participants. Il y a un service d'interprétation et de traduction disponible en portugais, en anglais et en français. Vous pouvez cliquer sur la petite icône interprétation et vous cliquez sur la langue que vous aimeriez écouter. Merci. Over to you, McKenna.
Thank you. We are moving to the first panel discussion. Allow me to introduce Madam Simone Yanke. Madam Simone is the regional, she's the senior policy officer for girls and women education at CIEFFA, and she will tell us what CIEFFA is all about when she comes in. She will come in and introduce our panel, and she will mostly communicate in French. Those of us who are logged in, please do make sure that your interpretation services is actively working. Thank you, Madam Simone.
Thank you very much, McKenna. Merci beaucoup. Je vais alors présenter rapidement le communiqué. J'espère que I hope that everyone can have the English interpretation because the panel, the slide will be in English, but I will be talking in French. Donc, comme on le disait, Vos Royales Majestés, Mesdames et Messieurs, distingués invités, bonjour. L'Union africaine CIEFFA est le Centre international pour l'éducation des filles et des femmes en Afrique. C'est une institution spécialisée de l'Union africaine. Nous sommes basés au Burkina Faso, à Ouagadougou, mais nous sommes une institution continentale. Nous travaillons avec les 55 pays membres de l'Union africaine. C'est tout simplement basé au Burkina Faso parce que le Burkina Faso étant un pays membre de l'Union africaine, a voulu abriter ce centre qui s'occupe de l'éducation des filles et des femmes. C'est en cela justement que nous avons organisé un dialogue avec les chefs traditionnels et religieux de l'Afrique. Et nous l'avons, c'est justement un deuxième dialogue parce que, next slide please, parce que cet agenda sur lequel nous travaillons concerne en fait différentes parties prenantes. Et l'une des parties prenantes pour nous, clés, ce sont les chefs traditionnels et religieux de l'Afrique. C'est en cela que le deuxième dialogue qui s'est passé en Ouganda en 2019 a réuni 19 chefs traditionnels et chefs religieux parce que nous croyons que nous avons besoin aussi bien des traditionnels et des religieux pour en fait faire avancer l'agenda en matière d'éducation des filles et des femmes. La particularité également de ce dialogue, c'est que nous avons essayé de réunir tout le monde, de respecter la dimension linguistique, la dimension régionale, la dimension de la parité du genre. C'est pour ça que pendant notre réunion, nous avons eu évidemment des rois, des reines, des princes et des princesses, et bien sûr les communautés chrétiennes et musulmanes qui étaient à cette réunion. Bien sûr, la réunion a été soutenue fortement par le Parlement de l'Ouganda, qui nous a soutenus et qui a pris part à cette réunion, à ce second dialogue. Je dis que c'est un second dialogue parce que c'est en 2017 que l'UICFA a organisé le premier dialogue avec des chefs traditionnels et religieux du Burkina Faso. Nous étions un projet pilote et c'est à la suite de cette réunion avec le Burkina Faso qu'une recommandation forte a été prise par ces chefs-là de continuer le dialogue sur l'éducation des filles et des femmes avec d'autres chefs traditionnels de l'Afrique. C'est pour cela que nous l'avons fait en 2019 avec tout le monde. Next slide, please. À la suite, durant cette réunion en Ouganda, nous avons pu travailler pendant 2 jours sur différentes thématiques et sur différents panels. À la suite, pendant ce dialogue, nous avons eu 4 thématiques majeures qui ont été abordées. La première thématique, en fait, a porté sur la perception des chefs traditionnels et religieux, sur les obstacles et les défis liés à l'éducation des filles et des femmes. Parce que vous êtes sans ignorer que très souvent, nous accusons soit à tort ou à raison nos cultures, nos traditions africaines d'être les entraves à l'éducation des filles et des femmes. Donc, nous avons pu donner l'occasion à ces chefs de parler de ça eux-mêmes. Ensuite, nous avons eu l'occasion de parler des exemples de bonnes pratiques. Quel est le travail que ces chefs traditionnels et religieux font dans leurs différentes communautés pour avancer l'éducation des filles et des femmes, pour intégrer la dimension genre? Et quel est le travail également qu'ils font avec les autres acteurs en matière d'éducation des filles et des femmes, avec les chefs traditionnels, avec d'autres chefs traditionnels, avec la société civile, les organisations internationales. Et puis également, un autre aspect, c'était de voir comment est-ce que les chefs traditionnels et religieux travaillent pour l'intégration des filles déplacées et réfugiés en lien avec le thème de l'Union africaine qui portait sur la question en 2019. Et également, next slide, please. Au cours de, next slide, please. Next. Next slide. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. It's coming.
Okay,
Sorry.
can we have the next slide? Okay, while putting the next slide, we continue. Donc, durant cette réunion, en fait, il y a un communiqué qui a été généré. Et le communiqué qui a été généré a été adopté par tous les chefs traditionnels et religieux qui étaient là. Et à la suite de ces 2 jours, les chefs traditionnels et religieux se sont engagés à certaines actions. Et parmi ces actions, par exemple, c'était leur implication dans la lutte contre toutes les barrières qui entravent l'éducation des filles et des femmes. Ensuite, également, c'était de jouer un rôle d'acteur clé dans le plaidoyer en faveur de l'éducation des filles et des femmes, c'est-à-dire de travailler avec les autres parties prenantes et d'aller au-delà du rôle traditionnel qu'on attribue souvent à nos chefs traditionnels, parce que souvent, on les limite en fait dans leur capacité et dans leur responsabilité de pouvoir agir plus. Nous avons estimé que nous avons besoin plus d'eux et qu'ils ont la possibilité de faire beaucoup plus en s'engageant plus dans la communauté et en travaillant sur l'éducation des filles et des femmes. Enfin, l'un des points forts de cette réunion, c'est de travailler ensemble avec l'Union africaine et bien sûr d'autres parties prenantes sur organiser une vaste campagne continentale, bien sûr, sur l'éducation des filles et des femmes. Je suppose que pendant cette réunion, nous pourrons peut-être revenir sur cette recommandation forte qui a été faite de pouvoir faire une campagne. Et je pense que c'est dans cette mouvance-là que nous sommes également en train d'avoir ces seconds dialogues-là. Je ne sais pas si j'ai toujours encore du temps, mais je voudrais vous remercier et dire qu'en résumé, voilà ce que a donné, c'est ce quoi a apporté le communiqué de 2019. Et justement, je vais continuer la modération de ce panel en appelant justement mes panélistes. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And it's based on this, the communique of this report, that I will now call upon my panelists. And the panelists are a particular panelist because I have 5 panelists, and these panelists were also in Uganda. They were in Uganda, and they were part of those who have adopted this communique. And the question that we'll be asking to the panelists will be referred and based to the commitment made in Uganda. So let me call now my panelists. I have Her Royal Queen Mother Best Olimi Temisa from Uganda, and Her Royal Highness Queen Martha Sekotali Mabena from South Africa, His Royal Highness Chief Matsimawe Chimuzi from Zambia, His Royal Highness King Nana Bibitu from Cote d'Ivoire, and Honorable the Imam Alidou Ilbudo from Burkina Faso. So I will let you introduce yourself, briefly introduce yourself, and you have 5 minutes, 4 to 5 minutes maximum to introduce yourself and present the action. Let me ask you the question. We have 2 questions, Your Majesty. And these 2 questions, you are free to choose one of the questions that you feel free to talk about it, or you can also talk on the 2 questions, but within the 5 minutes that you are allowed to speak. The first question that I would like to ask you, will you please share with us some of the best practices in your community on implementing innovative approaches and cultural transformation in girls and women education and empowerment, and in particular on increasing completion rates of girls at all levels of the educational system? Let me put it in that way. You will just be asking the different actions that you have implemented, I mean, to make sure that girl access to school, make sure that girls stay to school, make sure that girls complete their school. And the second question that I will be asking to you, Your Majesty, will be, could you share how this meeting has contributed, I mean, the dialogue in Uganda has contributed to enhance your network with other traditional and religious leaders since 2019, in line with girls and women education, as well as a thematic on girls and women empowerment in your community. So to simplify the question, can you also let us know, after Uganda meeting, have you developed a network? Have you worked with other traditional and religious leaders, as well as other stakeholders, in line with the communication, in line with the action taken in Uganda, in line with girls and women education, knowing that we have so many barriers like early child marriage, early pregnancy, whatever. So I will now call my first speaker, who is Her Royal Highness Queen Mother Bess Olimi from Uganda. Your Majesty, you have the floor. Thank you. Queen Mother Bess.
Simone, I think proceed to the next, and Dr. Katuram will speak on behalf of Queen Mother Bess after the other contributors. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Can I call upon Her Royal Highness Queen Martha Sikutali Mabena from South Africa, please? Your Majesty, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, Your Royal Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses, colleagues, and guests. I would like to, on this platform, just take a moment to acknowledge the passing of His Majesty King Zwelithini Nikabego Zulu of the Zulu Nation in South Africa. I'm doing this because the King was an ambassador and was very hands-on on making sure that girls remain in the education system in and around South Africa by it in the visit. So let me begin by introducing myself. I am Queen Sikutali Mabena of the Ndebele Kingdom in South Africa. I'm a member in Women in Ending Child Marriage and Female Genital Mutilation, and the Royal Youth Representative in the Council of Traditional Leaders of Africa, which is COTLA, an advocate for sexual reproductive health rights, SRHR, and an ambassador for menstrual hygiene with the AIDS Foundation of South Africa under their Sex Rights Network. So some of the implementations I've taken in my kingdom since 2019, especially amid the COVID-19 pandemic, and seeming that within the very same year, I transitioned from being a princess in Lesotho and to coming and being a queen in the Ndebele Kingdom. So a lot was happening for me during that time. I have since distributed sanitary towels to schoolgirls in the bid to prevent them from losing any more time in the classroom, as they already had due to COVID, and I decided that I would rather surrender on some of my needs than to sit back and watch my girls suffer because of a lack of a basic need. I have so far been able to reach 1,251 underprivileged girls with the distribution of 3,753 packs of sanitary towels. It might not look like much, but due to the struggles I encountered in trying to find donations, I had to do what I could. And amidst the COVID-19 regulations of social distancing and not spending too much time together, I had to be strategic in the times that I would be making these distributions. During the time, I had discussion with the girls and also teaching them about their sexual reproductive health rights. And we had lengthy positive discussions on how best they can practice their rights and save themselves from harm. I further introduced them to the idea of menstrual cups, which I believe will be a better option, especially with the horrible state of the environment we already live in and the lack of sanitation that we know most of our African countries are already suffering from. These cups will save the girls over 1,000 Rand each per year, over 10 years per girl. Not only will the cups save money, but they will bring dignity to the females and moreover comfort and support. Having done this, I still realized that the older girls and women, of which some couldn't finish matric or their grade 12 or any other grade from high school because they had to be breadwinners or could not afford tertiary tuition, also needed assistance. So I got together with a seamstress and managed to open a sewing school here at the Royal Homestead in KwaNdebele. I provided the seamstress with one of our admin blocks in order for her to be able to teach the students with ease and comfort. The course is an 8-month long course, and we have only 20 learners currently due to the regulations and COVID-19 guidelines. The students receive a monthly stipend of 1,280, which I have suggested that from that money, they should save so that when their course is over, they can get themselves machinery as a collective and continue doing their good work. My dream is that once they finish their course, I'm able to then assist them in attaining more machinery so that we can ultimately have a Royal Ndebele fashion hub, which will also be a big and positive impact on the elderly women who are already in the garment space. And so it shall be a collaboration. Our girls and women all over Africa have a great potential of being leaders in their own rights. And we as royals have to give them those opportunities and chances of proving themselves. It is up to us to working together and making sure our governments hear us and they hear the needs of our people, especially our women and girls. I believe that the future is female, the future belongs to us, and let us not rip each other off from it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Queen Sekotali, for keeping time and also to share this all best practices, the work that we are doing. I will not summarize what you say because we need to keep time, but thank you very much. I can see that Queen Mother Bess from Uganda is here with us. Can I give you the floor, Your Majesty, or do you want me to come back to the question? Queen Mother Bess? Can you hear her? I think your mic is muted.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you very well.
Yes, good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah, Your Majesties. Good afternoon, Your Royal Highnesses. Good afternoon, our CG. I'm happy to see Queen Nana. All is well here in Uganda. We thank God we are still alive. And my condolences to His Royal Majesty, the King of Zulu. Can you hear me?
I hear you perfectly, Your Majesty.
Yes. About girls. Girls' education is a strategic development priority, and it goes beyond school. Girls must be safe. Girls must be safe, equal opportunities at all levels. Our daughters face multiple changes and disadvantages, such as child marriages, violence, bad cultural norms and practices. Poverty is also a problem, especially here in Uganda. All these are barriers which we are trying to get rid of as cultural leaders. In our community, like where I live in Toro Kingdom, we have done a big impact as Queen Mother Best Foundation. We are registering COVID girls who have been suffering at home because schools haven't opened yet. We have started trying to get girls to come to learn skills in our vocational school. It's in place, and we are waiting for the schools to be open in April so that we can get girls, not only girls and boys, to come and acquire skills which can help them fit in the community. Most of these young girls are doing a lot of work. They are doing tailoring, they learn IT, they are learning hairdressing, they are learning fashion and designs, they are learning carpentry and other courses. So we're engaging girls to come and to learn skills, because our schools now, even the parents can't afford schools due to COVID. And what we have done again to empower women in our community, especially in Toro Kingdom, to learn how to use their hands. And we have a center where all women comes and learn how to use their hands to do beadings and a lot of things. Others, they do mats and a lot of handcrafts. We have also, what we have done, or what I've done as Queen Mother Best Foundation, I have put in place a school. It's a primary and kindergarten school where we educate our girls, not only girls, especially we give them bursaries for free so that we can engage our girls and boys to not to be redundant in their homes, and they will do a lot of things. So the school is in place, was put the school in place. The main reason was to help these young girls have time and do school without any hindrances from their children, from from many dangers where when they stay out at home, they get tempted to do many things. So at least we are encouraging it. I'm taking a lot of school dropouts. We don't segregate the years, or you find others are old, they come to that school and they study, we give them free education. So we have done a lot to fight the early child marriage. And we have a big question we always ask ourselves, but how can we change the world? If we want to change the world, the answer is to educate girls. Will be a powerful weapon. So let us have the ultimate aim to educate girls so that our communities can be stronger and prosperous. However, poverty seems to be the largest contributing factor to low standards of girls. Education in Uganda, although education is free, school suppliers and uniformity are not. The traditional leaders should be aware that girls have the same hopes and dreams as boys. They want to learn, fulfill their potential, work and help their families. and the communities.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry really to cut you off. Thank you very much, Your Majesty. There are so many things to say. Unfortunately, we have to keep time, but we really hear you. We will not summarize what you say. We just know that girls need to be safe, need to be in the safe place, need to be protected for a better world. Thank you very much, Your Majesty.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. Now let me call the third speaker. And the third speaker in my list is His Royal Highness Chief Madzimawe Chimuzi from Zambia. Your Majesty, are you ready to talk to her within the time of 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you so much, moderator. Greetings to fellow panelists and also our convener general who is on the program, and also other royal majesties that are also with us on this program. I think looking at the agenda and also the questions, the 2019 meeting that we had in Kampala, and the sole purpose was to look at the advancement of girl education, and which I think that was the initial challenge which we were looking at as Africa. And some of the issues that were raised was looking at the customary law and the statutory law regarding marriage, at what age one can get married, and also access to education and by girls, and also completion, because one can go into school, but the problem will be, are they going to continue? So these aspects were identified, and also the issue, the major issue, which are issues which are teenage pregnancies and child marriages. From the meeting we had in 2019, we came back and started implementing most of the recommendations which are centered on how we can bring everybody on board.
Don't hear the speaker.
I think we lost him.
Yeah.
But he's still in the house, but I think it should be internet.
It's okay. Just go on to the next. I'll try and reach him separately.
All right. Okay. In the meantime, en attendant que le chef Madzimawe se connecte, j'ai également le quatrième panéliste qui est Sa Majesté le roi Nana Bibi II de la Côte d'Ivoire. Sa Majesté, je ne sais pas si vous êtes connecté, et puis si vous voulez qu'on reprenne les questions en français, ou si vous voulez déjà réagir aux différentes questions qui vous ont été posées. Et vous avez 5 minutes pour le faire, maximum 5 minutes. Est-ce que vous êtes là? Sa Majesté, le roi Nana Bibi II de la Côte d'Ivoire. Est-ce que vous êtes là, Majesté? Sinon, je vais prendre l'imam Alidou Ilboudo s'il est connecté. Unless that Chief Madzimawe is now connected. The technical team, can you guide me, please?
We can go with Imam Ilbudo for now.
Okay. Okay. Imam Ilbudo, vous êtes connecté. Bonjour. L'imam Alidou Ilbudo du Burkina Faso. Bonjour. Vous êtes à votre troisième participation. Vous avez assisté au premier dialogue de l'Union africaine CIEFFA au Burkina Faso, au second dialogue en Ouganda, et vous êtes encore avec nous pour cette réunion virtuelle. Nous vous en remercions et nous vous donnons la parole pour 5 minutes maximum de présentation sur les questions qui vous ont été posées. Vous avez la parole. Merci.
Merci. Bonjour à tous. Bonjour aux rois, aux reines, aux athlètes et à tous les organisateurs. Bon, je suis sur un lieu de conférence, donc je ne suis pas très assuré pour le son. N'en déplaise, bon, on y va. Et pour la première question, il faut se dire que nous, au niveau de la communauté, surtout la communauté des musulmans, pour booster l'admission des filles à l'école et assurer leur maintien, nous avons beaucoup sensibilisé les associations islamiques pour la création et la gestion d'établissements. Parce que parfois, le principal grief que les gens portent à l'école classique, c'est que bon, les filles n'ont pas peut-être la chance ou l'occasion de porter le foulard, de faire les prières. Maintenant que les communautés créent des écoles conventionnelles, mais qui assurent le programme de l'État. Parce qu'auparavant, c'était des écoles franco-arabes où les matières scientifiques et générales de l'enseignement classique du pays n'étaient pas trop prises en compte. Donc aujourd'hui, la première expérience que nous avons, c'est beaucoup ça. Il y a beaucoup de création d'établissements. La qualité n'est pas au rendez-vous pour le moment, mais bon, on essaie d'améliorer beaucoup sur la formation des enseignants et la qualité des équipements. L'État aussi a fait un effort d'accompagnement en ayant des écoles franco-arabes publiques. Voilà, ce qui est nouveau dans notre pays. Voilà, et bon, ça remplace un peu la MEDESA. Et nous pouvons aussi, dans ce cadre-là, rappeler l'accompagnement par le parrainage et surtout l'accueil des enfants ou bien des scolaires qui viennent en ville pour poursuivre leur scolarité. Et au niveau d'une organisation comme l'URCB, nous travaillons avec le SOED qui accompagne effectivement ces genres d'initiatives. Donc, nous avons des mères éducatrices, des pères éducateurs plutôt, qui accueillent des enfants dans des foyers, qui les encadrent et qui font un tutorat. Et cela rassure beaucoup les parents quand les filles quittent le département pour venir dans la capitale ou bien dans une grande ville. Donc, voilà pour ce qui est peut-être de nouvelles expériences. Je me résume, c'est surtout les écoles au niveau des communautés et l'institution des franco-arabes par le pays et puis l'accompagnement par les petits parrainages. Maintenant, au niveau du réseautage, il faut dire que nous avons eu la chance qu'après Kampala, les pays ouest africains comme le Sénégal, la Côte d'Ivoire, le Niger et le Bénin, nous avons bénéficié d'un programme de formation en coaching des leaders religieux, surtout pour la PF, avec TCI, The Challenge Initiative. C'est sur la PF, la planification familiale, mais nous, les religieux, comme c'était pour notre première participation, nous avons jugé bon de nous impliquer sur des sujets que nous pouvons faire le plaidoyer au niveau de la communauté. Donc, c'était essentiellement pour nous la scolarisation des filles, l'autonomisation des femmes et le dialogue parents-enfants sur les questions de sexualité. Et comme c'était du coaching, nous devions, par exemple, au Burkina Faso, coacher 15 leaders par communauté à Ouagadougou, donc 45 leaders, voilà, 15 chrétiens, 15 musulmans, 15 coutumiers, pour qu'ils fassent le même travail que nous, c'est-à-dire sensibiliser et au niveau des communautés pour la scolarisation des filles, l'autonomisation des femmes. Et à Ouaga, nous sommes déjà à 30 leaders et nous allons compléter en fin mars pour les 15 leaders. Et comme TCI travaille avec les villes aussi de Koutkou et de Bobo-Dioulasso, nous allons bientôt développer un programme pour 15 leaders à Koutkou et 15 leaders à Bobo-Dioulasso. Donc, nous serons à 30 pour ces villes. Donc, c'est dire que c'est venu vraiment ajouter et ça nous a permis de faire un réseautage où nous pouvons trouver des personnes qui sont sensibles à la cause des filles. Voilà. Et les thèmes aussi voisins, tels que l'autonomisation des femmes ou bien le dialogue parents-enfants sur les questions de sexualité que nous avons choisi en plus de la scolarisation des filles, sont des thèmes aussi qui confortent vraiment sur cette question de la scolarisation des filles. Donc voilà un peu ce que nous pouvons dire au niveau du réseau. Ça nous a conforté et ça a grandi et nous pensons pouvoir continuer sur cette lancée. Donc voilà ce que je peux dire pour ces deux questions.
Merci beaucoup, Imam Alidou Ilboudo, pour ce partage-là. Nous vous en remercions. Nous restons en contact avec vous. Without further ado, should I call Chief Madzimawe maybe just to add some certain things, or the chief from Côte d'Ivoire, if they are connected? Otherwise, I will call the young alumni from AU CIEFFA, Uri Kamisoko. Do we have Chief Madzimawe? Are you still connected?
Yeah, I think I'm back.
You are still remaining, Your Majesty, with maximum 2 minutes. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'll try my best. I was actually looking at time. I think amid COVID restrictions, we have continued to put in our best to see that these girls are in school, those that we've managed and those that are in school. And we have also fine-tuned our bylaws in order to help us continue working amid challenges of the new normal. The access to education, I think we've continued. We are supporting, I think, with educational support from within the chiefdom. We are supporting survivors of child marriages, and also we've continued to take on board those that are coming from vulnerable, those that are vulnerable, from vulnerable families and child-headed household. We have continued, and I think I was sharing that it was only last week when we were paying for those that have gone back to school, and the examination system in Zambia, the examination number that you come with from grade 7 to grade 9, it continues. So if you go out of school, you have to write under external. So we have assisted to pay for those. And also some of the programs that we've continued is to, we from 2019 and 2020, we've managed to dissolve about 58 child marriages in the chiefdom. And also we have continued to engage with other stakeholders, and also we are targeting the private sector, because some of these girls, there are some who have completed their education. When they complete their education, what next? So there is need also to prepare that they get employed. We should engage both government and the private sector so that they have access to jobs when they finish their education. And also for those that have accessed skills training, we should as well find some form of empowerment so that they begin to implement what they learned during those skills.
Thank you, Your Majesty. Thank you. I'm really sorry. I know that you have a lot to say. Thank you very much for all these recommendations. And we thank you very much. We keep in touch with you, particularly on the job access, working, the role that you can play with the private sector and girl access into the job market and opportunity. Thank you very much, Your Majesty.
Can I add something on COTLA launch in Uganda? I didn't hear what the French is. The French, I didn't hear what she was saying. What he was saying, one of His Majesty. Just to let you know, Madam Moderator, the launch in Uganda, our theme of the conference, COTLA Uganda chapter, was the role of culture and promoting rights of women and girls in Uganda. That was so important to us.
Thank you very much.
And we are working with gender in Uganda. On that day, national cultural leaders, traditional cultural leaders, stakeholders, government, civil society met in Kampala. It was 27th November. I think you're aware. The theme, I've said it, and of course, we are joined by His High Excellency Rosa Malango and UN Dr. Maxim.
Thank you very much, Your Majesty.
The event was organized by QMB Foundation and CCFU, what? It was the Federation of Uganda Lawyers, the Society General Cultural Institutions, the Prime Minister's Foundation, and
thank you, Your Majesty. Well. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing all this information with us. We keep in touch with your foundation, but unfortunately, we have to give the floor to the other panelists. Thank you very much. Thank you for your understanding.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't know that if I still have the chief from Cote d'Ivoire. Otherwise, I will call Uri Kamisoko. Do we have the chief from Côte d'Ivoire just for 2 minutes? Est-ce que vous êtes là, Sa Majesté de la Côte d'Ivoire? Je crois qu'il n'est pas connecté. Je vais appeler mademoiselle Uri Kamisoko du Mali, qui est une alumni de l'UICFA, juste pour rebondir pendant 2 minutes maximum, Uri, sur tout ce qui a été dit par nos leaders traditionnels et religieux. Donc, c'est dommage, nous n'avons pas assez de temps. Vous avez juste 2 minutes pour réagir. Merci. Vous êtes connecté.
Okay. Vous m'entendez là? C'est bon?
On vous entend très bien.
Super. Je vais vraiment essayer de me dépêcher. Bonjour à tous. Je tiens d'abord à vraiment féliciter nos très chers leaders communautaires et religieux pour tous les efforts consentis en faveur de l'éducation des filles. Nous pouvons voir que les leaders communautaires et religieux sont vraiment des acteurs incontournables en faveur de l'éducation des filles. Ici au Mali, on constate un peu la même énergie chez nos leaders religieux qui tout récemment ont mené une lutte pendant les 16 jours d'activisme pour parler un peu des violences basées sur le genre dans toutes les régions du Mali. Et aujourd'hui, on sait que 75% de la population mondiale se réclame à une religion ou à une tradition. Et les leaders religieux et communautaires sont parmi les personnalités les plus influentes et respectées. Donc, pour moi, il convient ensemble de travailler ensemble, de changer les normes sociales qui stipulent que la place de la fille, c'est dans la cuisine. Nous pouvons changer les normes qui encouragent le mariage précoce, le mariage forcé, qui discriminent les filles et surtout les normes qui encouragent l'éducation des garçons et non celle des filles. Juste pour prendre un exemple un peu plus concret sur mon cas ici au Mali, je viens d'une famille où lorsqu'il s'agit de décider entre l'éducation des filles ou l'éducation des garçons, ou faire de longues études ou aller à l'extérieur, la place a été toujours donnée aux garçons parce qu'ils ont toujours pensé que les garçons ont beaucoup plus à apporter plus que les filles. Donc aujourd'hui, avec tout le respect que je dois à mes chers leaders communautaires, à mes chers leaders religieux, c'est de vraiment que nous puissions tous nous donner la main, travailler ensemble pour supprimer les normes sociales, les normes discriminatoires, les normes qui aujourd'hui n'encouragent pas du tout l'éducation de la fille. Il y a une phrase du rapport de plan international qui dit que l'éducation ne peut peut-être pas transformer à elle seule la société dans laquelle nous vivons, mais aucune transformation ne se fera sans éducation. Donc, c'est pour cela qu'il est vraiment important que, juste pour dire qu'il est vraiment important qu'avec les leaders religieux, avec les leaders communautaires, qu'ensemble, on puisse se donner la main et vraiment réduire les normes sociales qui discriminent les filles. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Ouri. C'est sur cette note-là qui dit que l'éducation contribuera vraiment à changer l'Afrique que nous voulons, que je voudrais remercier tous mes panélistes, Your Royal Majesty, and then now maybe call the technical team to just let us see a video produced by the CIEFFA in line with the Africa Educate Her campaign, a campaign which was launched in last September, and to make sure that all girls return back to school when school reopen. When schools are now open, we need to make sure that girls come back, return to school. And thank you very much. I don't know if the video is ready, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Simone, for facilitating the first panel. We are moving well, and we are only running 8 minutes past the time as we had allocated, and we appreciate all the panelists who've come and shared strongly their work experiences in terms of looking back through the 2019 AU CIEFFA commitments of traditional and religious leaders that they did during the 2019 meeting in Kampala. And now I'm going to just run you through the next session that we are going to look at supporting girls' education in times of COVID-19. And just to tell you that we are still within the objective because we've done the first one already, looking back into what was the commitment, what has been possible within the pandemic. And we are continue to share experiences and practices prior to the pandemic and during the pandemic of what the traditional and religious leaders are engaging in terms of girls' access to education, what we call education equality. And now allow me to introduce my colleagues, Helen Kron. She's the regional education specialist for UNICEF East and South African Regional Office, and Dr. Jacinta, who is from UN Women, who will talk us through the next session of supporting girls' education in times of COVID-19 through 2 presentations that will be short and sweet. Thank you, and welcome, Helen.
Thank you so much, Makena. Good morning, good afternoon, Your Highnesses, Your Majesties, your attendees, distinguished panelists. We are delighted to start this second session on girls' education in the COVID context. And we're going to start with a joint presentation with UN Women and UNICEF. And then we will discuss with 3 panelists on what are their thoughts about how traditional and religious leaders can engage and facilitate the returns of girls to school. So I would like to ask maybe Laura to share the presentation and ask Dr. Jacinta to start presenting this joint presentation. Over to you, Dr. Jacinta.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Helen. Thank you. Your Royal Highnesses, distinguished guests, practitioners, all protocols observed, thank you for this opportunity to share with you some of the critical lessons that are emerging in our collaborations with traditional and religious leaders. My presentation is very brief. I cover 3 areas. Next slide, please. Next slide. So I'm going to be looking at the context of girls' education within this broader context of COVID-19, the barriers to long-term progress for girls, and conclude with some good lessons that we are, or good practices that we are learning or seeing emerge. So to make sense of this, the place to begin is, of course, the context. And I divide the context into 3 broad areas for our discussion. 1, prior to COVID-19, and then during COVID-19 and post-COVID-19 as we imagine the future. So prior to COVID-19, as has been recognized by some of our speakers, it has been a time where we have indeed made significant progress towards gender parity in education. So much so that it is actually an area to feel a sense of achievement, particularly at the elementary grades. However, this position continues to also still have challenging stories in the sense that girls and young women still do face challenges around access, retention, and completion of schooling, particularly we're speaking here about the African context. That's the general picture prior to COVID-19. Now, during COVID-19, we've had school closures. Relatively recently, schools have reopened. But again, given the current fear of a 3rd wave, we may indeed be back again to school closures or some early school closures for certain grades of children. So that, broadly speaking, is that around school closures on the continent, we've seen existing inequalities exacerbated for girls, and especially girls who are vulnerable. And vulnerability, particularly in resource-poor families or communities, particularly at risk. And these present to us certain challenges, even at the reopening of schools, but during the period of COVID. So a key area of concern is that we're seeing reduced or loss of household incomes among families that's pushing them into poverty. The consequence of this is that we are all therefore seeing girls increasingly being delegated to income earning responsibilities. And as girls are delegated to more income responsibilities, we're seeing therein increased risks of JBV, transactional sex and sexual exploitation, but also within that, as a result of loss of family incomes, an increased risk of early marriage. And the combined effect of this is that there is increased workload for girls as they will continue to be tasked with more household work and childcare. And this context is, of course, exacerbated further by the fact that the pandemic has created restrictions that have disrupted the provision of and access to programs, especially those services that are essential to girls, and the safe spaces that have, in fact, were created to support girls. So when we look at post-COVID, and I say post-COVID really sort of in quotation marks, but we're raising this here now for discussion and thought, that for vulnerable girls who left school during the COVID period or currently during the COVID period, many of them will probably not return. And many of them will not return because of some of those risks that I had mentioned up earlier. So this, the consequence, of course, this is that we could see a disruption potentially for millions of girls going forward. So looking a little bit more closely, so what work really remains to be done? Girls continue, especially vulnerable girls, to face access to education during, as I've said, and that there's risks that these will continue even after the crisis. Key among these barriers is the existing economic uncertainty that is faced across the continent, financial instability and insecurity, which also not only has consequences for household, but also possibly for resources for education. The second area of concern is that discriminatory gender norms and attitudes continue to compromise girls' rights to education, bodily integrity, and autonomy over their own bodies. And we also are beginning to see, when we look at the numbers, that with lockdown and restrictions in movement, that there's been increased gender-based violence, particularly, of course, experienced more by, yes, children, but more particularly the most vulnerable girls. And lastly, even when there is supportive laws that exist, and many of our countries now do have supportive laws, stumbling blocks remain around school reentry, school retention, or school readmission in the absence of adequate resources, absence of the judicial infrastructure needed, the legal personnel to support this, as well as just basic support units for victims experiencing violence or being challenged in their ability to return to school. However, having said that, there are good practices and examples that are emerging across the continent. I want to share two from Malawi and Zambia, because they are the two that I've recently been paying attention to. And these are have been led by UN Women in partnership with the AU, UN agencies, governments, and CSOs working in this area. What is important about the UN Women contribution is that it has elaborated and highlighted and amplified the efforts of working with traditional and religious leaders, because we already see the evidence, just given the examples shared, of how this is bringing catalytic change in the lives of girls. And this will need to be sustained if we are to ensure that girls do indeed, particularly given the pandemic, an opportunity for second chance education. And some examples here very quickly of some of the good practices is, number one, the recognition of this program that one intervention does not fit all, that we need to be supporting contextual and participatory community conversations. Contextual is a recognition that each context, each community is going to have very specific needs around why girls are not able to return to school. Providing support also that will enhance the capacity to respond. So this is the technical assistance that also UN Women in partnership with other agencies has been supporting in terms of addressing child marriage and gender-based violence at community level. The other good practice is the one around ensuring that it is communities themselves that are spearheading, coordinating, and leading these efforts. So building ownership will facilitate how we keep child marriage survivors in schools, because communities will begin to see the value of doing so. And then number four, expanding community livelihoods. As I mentioned earlier, financial risks and insecurity are some of the things that are emerging during the pandemic period. And so there is need to begin to think about how do we ensure that communities indeed can survive, that communities will indeed continue to keep their girls in school, that schools will indeed continue to thrive. So this is about, and this is really a great example of how you bring together schools and families to support entrepreneurial opportunities so that this can be sustained, particularly giving second chance opportunities to girls. And then the fourth and last practice example coming out of the Malawi and Zambia work is the IBSA funded scholarships. And these are targeting girls who are survivors of child marriage so that indeed they get the second chance of going to school. So these are some of the positive, I think, examples that we can share right now. And the point or the question now for us to reflect on is how do we expand these and take these to scale going forward? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Jacinta. I'm going to continue this presentation. Thank you for having shared the funding of this study. So maybe I'm going to come back on what's happening in school right now and give some data on re-enrollment of girls as schools are reopening. Actually, we don't know, we know very little about what's happening because governments have difficulties putting in place robust mechanism to monitor what's happening in school, but also because there is a pattern of, reopening, reclosure because of the epidemic breaks, and that leads unstable numbers. But we have received preliminary data from Ministries of Education, and that can give us an idea. And I'm going to focus on particularly secondary school girls. So far we have received data from Ethiopia, which has reopened school totally fully in November. Sorry, there is someone that is not muted. If the other people can mute themselves, would be fine. So Ethiopia, which has reopened school fully in November, but as of February, has seen only 10% of the secondary school girls already back to school. Concerning Rwanda, actually, we have received some data showing that 17% of secondary school girls are back to school, mentioning that Rwanda has started to reopen school in November, partially, but only recently for all the cohorts. And concerning South Africa, we have received data from October that basically show us that 3 months after the reopening of school in South Africa in June, only 25% of girls have not joined the school. We're not at school at that time. So meaning that if we take all those 3 countries, it's almost 800,000 girls that have to bring back to school. If we don't want a lost generation of girls with limited life opportunity and less chance of breaking the cycle of poverty. Next slide, please. So I'm going to use this slide that comes from the Global Partnership for Education, actually. Thank you to them. So what I mean when I said that these girls will not have the opportunity to break the cycle of poverty, I mean that they will not take advantage of the opportunity that education offers them to live a better life, to make their future families healthier, and give their communities and countries a chance to be more productive. Here we can see some evidence. So the evidence shows us that the longer a child stays in the education system, the more money he or she will earn over a lifetime. Each additional year of schooling for a girl increases her future income by 10%. We also see that girls with secondary education are 6 times less likely to be married as a child when we compared with their peers with little or no education. But also for their future family, it's important that this girl can access to education. The child of a literate mother is 50% more likely to survive to the age of 5 and less likely to suffer from malnutrition. And when I was talking about the benefit for communities and countries, evidence shows us that investing in girls' education can trigger an increase of agriculture production, but also a growth in terms of GDP, which basically look at how fast the economy is growing. So investing in girls' education is essential, but COVID has put all the gains at risk. So it's still, we still have some room to act. These girls are still there in their community, in their families, and it's why it's so important today to discuss together how the people that are the most influential at community level, how they can be empowered and how they can be they can act in favor of girls' education and girls back to school. Next slide, please. So here again, we have listed a couple of action. It's examples of what traditional leaders can do to try to get girls back to school. So basically, I think it's the theme of the next panel, so I won't get long. So maybe it's around identifying girls that have dropped out, how to support dialogue within the community and raise awareness, trying to support the enforcement of law if it exists, but also try to support the co-creation of local and context-specific learning opportunity for her in their community. Next slide, please. Finally, I think we have listed a couple of resources that have been produced by UN Women, by UNICEF, UNESCO, and other agencies. And probably it would be interesting for the attendees and all people interested in this area of work to click on all those resources. That's basically clickable resources. So we have here some policy paper around ending child marriage, gender-based violence, but also school reopening, as well as a very good practical guide to support authorities, but also communities to get girls back to school. I think it's the next slide. Yeah, so I would like to thank you very much. I know we are running a bit out of time. Please, if you have any contribution, question, don't hesitate to put it on the chat. We're going to have a maybe short opportunity to hear from the chat box a bit later. To transition to the panel discussion, I would like to ask my colleague Laure Michel to send the poll. We actually would like to I'm going to put my camera on. We would like to hear from you about what you think of the effective strategy the traditional leaders can adopt to support the return of girls to school. Laure, over to you.
Thank you, Hélène. So as Hélène mentioned, we would like to know now, dear participants and panelists, what do you think traditional leaders and religious leaders can do to support the return of girls to school? So I'm going to launch a quick poll now that will show on your screens, hopefully. And you are all invited to put your answer in, and then we'll show the results. So in your opinion, how could traditional and religious leaders best support the return of girls to school? I see responses coming in. These are, of course, only a few answers. If you have any idea or insight that you would like to share, please do so in the chat box. We will be happy to read them. Let's give it a few more seconds for everyone to get the chance to put their answer in.
I see some attendees contributing in the chat box. Thank you so much. Maybe we can end this poll. We are running a bit late.
Yes. So let's end it here. Thank you everyone who's participated in the poll, and I will share the results now. And as you can see, the overwhelming number of people have chosen to say that facilitating the dialogue with parents of vulnerable girls to find specific solutions for their return to school is indeed the most effective strategy that traditional leaders and religious leaders could take to facilitate the return to school. So with that, I would like to give the floor back to Hélène to introduce our next panelists. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura. And it's my pleasure to open the second panel with very high personalities all over Africa. And we are going to have the chance to look at what are the three panelists' thoughts on how we could engage in the context of COVID to facilitate the return of girls to school. And I'm gonna ask two questions. The panelists can respond to one of them or both of them based on their experience. So the first question is how traditional and religious leaders engage with parents and caregivers and communities to encourage girls return to school and overcome the constraints to girls' education in the context of COVID-19. The second question is more on the collaboration between local education authorities, school actors, and traditional and religious leaders, how to establish and reinforce the collaboration to ensure that no girls is left behind as school reopen. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to our three panelists. So the first one is His Majesty the King Mfumu Difimi Ntinu from DRC. The second one will be His Majesty the King Magiso Kane Mahamad Mansour from Niger, and the third one will be the Reverend Jimmy Firi from Malawi. So I'm gonna switch in French. Monsieur, Son Altesse Royale, le roi Mfumu Difimi Ntinu, welcome, bienvenue dans ce palais. Nous sommes très heureux de vous avoir. Vous êtes le vice-président de COTLA pour l'Afrique australe, l'Afrique centrale et l'Afrique de l'Est. Nous aimerions vous entendre à propos de vos réflexions, de vos pensées sur comment vous, à votre niveau, mais aussi comment vous pensez les leaders traditionnels, les chefs coutumiers peuvent jouer leur rôle et leur part dans toute cette problématique du retour des filles à l'école. La parole est à vous, Votre Altesse.
Ok, mais merci beaucoup de cette occasion qui nous est offerte. Je voudrais avant tout saluer tout le monde et remercier l'Union africaine, l'ONU Femmes, l'UNICEF, Oxfam et surtout le centre de l'Union africaine qui s'occupe de cette éducation des filles et des femmes. Et principalement aussi salutations à mes collègues de CONATA, COTLA, en anglais comme on aime bien le dire. J'ai suivi l'intervention de Sa Majesté Adérémy pour son introduction où il a rappelé la confiance, la collaboration que CONATA offre au niveau des institutions internationales, continentales et africaines pour trouver des solutions appropriées à l'encadrement de la jeune fille. Je voudrais par la même occasion saluer Madame Philomène, Madame Hélène, Madame Laure qui nous accompagnent dans cette organisation pour commencer à s'apprêter. Madame Roberta qui nous soutient dans cette continuité du combat de l'ONU Femmes Afrique et les chefs traditionnels Afrique pour qu'ensemble nous puissions renforcer notre collaboration et que chacun puisse apporter ce qui est nécessaire dans l'encadrement de la jeune fille, la fille étant la maman, la fille étant celle qui porte encore les générations futures, celles qui portent l'éducation, comme nous dirons dans notre enseignement. La femme, c'est la ministre de l'Éducation. La femme, c'est le fondement de la terre. La femme, c'est le fondement de l'humanité. La femme, c'est l'éducatrice qui gère du fœtus même jusqu'au sein, jusqu'à donner au monde ce que ça peut être. Et effectivement, il est important que cette femme soit encadrée. Ici, nous avions eu comme premier souci comment éradiquer les mariages précoces, comment éradiquer les violences faites à la femme, comment rapidement éradiquer les mutilations génitales. C'était un peu le premier point sur lequel nous avions compté, et surtout avec un grand accent sur les mariages précoces que j'ai toujours considéré comme grossesse précoce. Et donc, pourquoi mettre l'accent sur la scolarité de la jeune fille? Pour qu'effectivement nous puissions réussir deux choses. La première, c'est le leadership féminin qui doit s'installer dans un équilibre avec les hommes. Et deuxièmement, c'est comment ramener la femme dans cet équilibre qu'on est en train de rechercher, qui est le gender. Et pour cela, il faut qu'à la base, une éducation soit mise en place. Pour que les mariages précoces ne soient pas mis en place, pour que cela ne puisse pas avoir lieu, il faut au préalable qu'il y ait un enseignement, une éducation qui accompagne la jeune fille. Et ce grand effort qui a été fait, où on considère qu'au moment actuel, les grands efforts qui ont été fournis sont malheureusement en recul, comme ont soulevé beaucoup des intervenants, par rapport à ces pandémies, qui est d'ailleurs un coup de massue qui est arrivé en stoppant. On avait déjà difficile à ramener les jeunes au niveau de l'enseignement. Voici que nous nous retrouvons dans la deuxième difficulté, c'est que les efforts faits et les efforts fournis ont été stoppés par la pandémie. D'où la question, que faire après ces stops, après ces blocages dus à la pandémie? Comment occuper la jeune fille pour qu'elle ne puisse pas perdre de l'élan? Ici, nous retrouvons l'autorité traditionnelle, l'autorité coutumière est la première personne, comme dans ces sondages qu'on vient de lancer, la première personne qui est censée sécuriser son entité. L'autorité coutumière est investie pour penser au développement de sa communauté. L'autorité coutumière est investie pour penser au développement, à l'entretien et à la bonne conditionnalité de son peuple. Et pour cela, il est le premier qui veille sur l'ensemble de sa communauté matin et soir. Il est le premier enseignant. Il est le premier, comme la maman, qui est là en train d'assister ses enfants. C'est la première personne qui sait dire aux parents, qui sait dire au papa, pour dire ta fille s'est mal levée, ta fille a fui l'école depuis 3 jours. L'autorité coutumière est celui qui détient toutes ces informations. Alors, qu'est-ce qui se passe réellement? Pour que cela ne puisse pas coûter à la communauté, il faut rapidement mettre en place d'abord des commissions qui vont en appui à l'autorité traditionnelle. Parce que vous le savez si bien, la COVID a apporté ce qu'on a appelé une crise financière aujourd'hui au monde. Et donc, les social est déjà en difficulté au niveau local. Et même si les écoles réouvrent face aux frais qui vont commencer à coûter, beaucoup de ces enfants ne seront plus y aller. Et donc, ils vont s'accumuler où? Chez l'autorité traditionnelle. Les chômages vont s'accumuler. Or, au niveau traditionnel, on a l'habitude de compléter ou de couvrir par ce qu'on peut appeler de travaux complémentaires. Après l'école, les enfants sont habitués à aller au champ. Après l'école, ils sont habitués à aller dans des mines pour d'ailleurs eux-mêmes produire ce qu'ils peuvent produire pour financer leurs écoles. Quand ils sont au chômage, ils vont s'habituer rapidement à un plein temps. Comment éviter que ces plein temps leur prennent la tête? C'est en organisant beaucoup de jeux psychologiques, de jeux d'entretien scientifique qui leur permettent de rester en écho, en lien avec les retours scolaires. Et pour cela, il faut que les organisations financières internationales et consorts, je vois ici UNICEF, ONU Femmes, Union africaine, tout ce monde-là doivent accompagner l'autorité traditionnelle dans l'organisation de ces genres d'activités qui sont des activités parascolaires, mais en famille, parascolaires dans la communauté pour les maintenir à chaud. Et donc, les 4 minutes sont difficiles à réunir. Ce que je veux dire, c'est qu'il faudrait que les organisations que nous puissions ensemble, Union africaine, UNICEF, CONATA, du moins au niveau de grands commandements que nous sommes, avec les charges que nous avons, que nous puissions ensemble mettre en place une politique de l'accompagnement, un plan, nous allons écrire certainement, un plan qui va faire que vous puissiez accompagner les chefs traditionnels à la base, parce que eux, en fait, qui sont les derniers remparts des populations. C'est eux qui savent stimuler les enfants pour dire l'école reprend, il faut répartir. Aussi, c'est eux qui, s'ils sont bien mis en cause, s'ils sont bien conditionnés, vont aider les familles dans quel sens? Les rentrées, ça sera des problèmes de financement. Comment vont-ils faire pour que ceux qui restent à la maison qui ne savent pas payer puissent bénéficier de l'éducation? Ça, c'est tout un programme que, effectivement, au niveau bilatéral, les grands États essayent de résoudre, Mais souvent, on ignore que la personne clé qui est à la fin, duquel dépendent les églises, ce que je peux appeler les confessions religieuses, duquel dépendent les associations, les ONG consorts, tous dépendent de cette autorité traditionnelle qui finalement reste l'assiette. Si on peut renforcer l'assiette de l'autorité traditionnelle avec effectivement une mise à niveau dans la gestion financière, je suis certain que eux, en tant que premiers responsables de leurs entités, vont y veiller. Le cas qui est très concret, on avait parlé de l'Ebola. Quand ces gens d'histoire arrivent et que ça commence à chauffer, même les médecins s'enfuient, les politiques s'enfuient, les députés s'enfuient, tout le monde, même les enseignants fuient. Les seuls qui restent sur le terrain avec son peuple, c'est l'autorité coutumière. Et là, il y veille. Mais a-t-il tous les moyens pour encadrer son peuple? Non. Il faudrait qu'à ce moment-là, qu'on prenne conscience qu'il faut des textes de loi au niveau de l'Union africaine, qu'il faut que l'accompagnement que nous attendons de l'ONU Femmes, de l'UNICEF, de tout ce qu'il y a comme organisation internationale qui nous accompagne, que ces appuis aient comme ancrage l'autorité traditionnelle, comment les mettre à niveau pour qu'ils puissent continuer à créer des jeux appropriés à l'encadrement de sa population. Merci de ces 4 minutes que j'ai largement grignotées et je vous souhaite à vous tous toutes nos bénédictions ancestrales et l'accompagnement de l'autorité coutumière vous est garanti et rassuré. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Votre Majesté, pour ces pensées éclairées, ces propositions, et je retiens la politique de l'accompagnement des chefs traditionnels. C'est vraiment quelque chose sur lequel il faudra réfléchir. Je voudrais me tourner maintenant vers Sa Majesté royale, le roi Maigizo Kane Mahamad Mansour du Niger, pour vos contributions. Encore une fois, on est désolé de vous interrompre, le temps nous est un petit peu compté, mais s'il vous plaît, Sa Majesté, vous avez la parole.
Bonjour madame, bonjour messieurs, dames. Vu le temps, je vais aller directement dans le vif du sujet. Alors, pour pallier à tout ce qui s'est passé, tous les problèmes qu'on a eu avec l'éducation, alors l'année passée, nous avons eu l'idée maintenant de demander à toutes les filles qui avaient échoué aux examens, que ce soit les examens du BEPC, le diplôme de fin des études du collège, que ce soit les filles qui ont échoué au niveau des examens du bac, alors le diplôme de fin d'études au niveau du lycée pour aller vers les écoles supérieures ou à l'université. Alors, toutes ces filles-là, alors qui sont issues de familles démunies et qui n'ont pas les moyens de revenir à l'école et dont les parents ne peuvent pas leur payer l'école, nous leur avons demandé de se faire inscrire au niveau de la direction départementale de l'enseignement secondaire et nous avons pu avoir 113 filles, donc 90 pour le brevet et 23 pour le bac. Ces filles-là, nous les avons inscrites dans une école privée, nous les avons accompagnées jusqu'à la fin de l'année scolaire. Pour cette année-là, nous avons reconduit le même programme avec le soutien d'un partenaire. Nous avons recruté 163 filles, 127 pour le brevet et maintenant 36 pour le bac. Ces filles-là, nous les avons non seulement confectionné les tenues de classe, les tenues de sport, nous leur avons donné les bics, les cahiers, plus que ce que donne le gouvernement. Nous avons donné les trousses de géométrie, nous avons donné les calculatrices. Et nous les avons recruté 20 professeurs répétiteurs que nous payons à hauteur de 200 000 francs chaque mois, 200 000 francs CFA, pour que ces filles-là puissent être mieux accompagnées. Et pour les encourager, les motiver, le gouvernement, le ministère de la formation professionnelle a envoyé des agents pour dire à toutes les filles, les 127 filles qui passent le brevet, que si elles passaient leurs examens, le gouvernement leur garantissait une inscription gratuite prise en charge par l'État dans des écoles professionnelles à travers tout le pays. Alors, ce programme-là, nous le faisons avec qui? Nous le faisons avec la direction départementale de l'enseignement secondaire. Nous le faisons avec les 7 écoles privées qui prennent en charge les filles dans le cadre de ce programme-là. Nous le faisons avec le corps enseignant chargé du suivi et aussi de dispenser les cours de renforcement. Nous le faisons avec les parents d'élèves. Nous le faisons avec les agents de la direction départementale de l'enseignement secondaire chargés du suivi de la scolarisation de la jeune fille. Alors, à part ça, pour les écoles primaires, nous avons remarqué un cruel manque de tables-bancs dans nos écoles primaires, surtout dans les écoles rurales. Et qu'est-ce que ça crée? Ça crée des fois des situations où vous voyez pour les rares tables qui existent dans les écoles, vous voyez les garçons assis sur les tables, pendant que les filles avec les autres garçons sont assis à même le sol, soit sur des tapis de prière, soit sur des sacs vides de céréales. Alors pour pallier à cela, l'année passée, nous avons convoqué toutes les familles, tous les chefs de village, de tribus, de quartiers. Nous avons dit, allez-y vers vos populations, demandez à chaque famille de nous donner une contribution d'une mesure de 1000. Alors avec cela, nous nous sommes lancés le défi de faire 1000 tables bancs que nous allons redistribuer dans toutes les écoles, des écoles primaires du monde rural jusqu'aux écoles de la ville de Tessa du Royaume, pour que maintenant toutes les filles et les garçons soient sur le même pied d'égalité. Alors, j'ai omis d'ouvrir une parenthèse. Pour les écoles, pour les filles que nous avons recrutées pour passer les examens, nous leur avons fait signer des engagements et à leurs parents et à leurs conjoints pour celles qui sont mariées, comme quoi les parents s'engagent à ne pas marier ces filles-là jusqu'à la fin du programme et que les conjoints s'engagent à soutenir le programme et à soutenir les filles dans les études pour qu'elles obtiennent aussi leur bac ou leur brevet et pour qu'elles puissent aller de l'avant. Nous ne sommes pas restés qu'à cela. Nous avons aussi maintenant pensé aux jeunes filles qui ne vont pas à l'école parce qu'elles n'ont jamais été inscrites et aussi qui n'ont aucune chance de rejoindre maintenant les bancs de l'école. Alors, pour ces filles-là, nous sommes en train de lancer un projet. Nous avons déjà identifié le site. Nous allons apprendre à travers la télé-irrigation à 200 à 250 filles, parce que ce sera sur 4 à 6 hectares, 200 à 250 filles à pratiquer la contre-saison. Et pour cela, elles auront des messieurs, des dames qui vont les initier à la pratique de la contre-saison. Il y aura la formation, la production, la transformation sur place et aussi la vente. Alors, ces filles-là vont vendre et à toutes ces filles-là, et on va ouvrir des comptes d'épargne dans une banque de la place et les produits des ventes et de la transformation seront placés dans le compte de chacune d'entre elles et à la fin de la formation qui prendra certainement 12 mois, chacune pourra repartir chez elle avec un capital avec lequel elle pourra faire ce que bon lui semble. Alors, à la fin de cette formation-là, ces filles-là auront encore l'opportunité d'aller dans des écoles, dans des centres de formation au métier de la place où elles seront initiées à la couture, à la broderie, au make-up, le maquillage, le henné, les tresses, à la cuisine pour les réunions, à la cuisine pour les petits plats qui se vendent bien en ville et aussi à la cuisine pour les mariages et les baptêmes pour que ces filles-là soient opérationnelles et productives toute l'année. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Votre Majesté, pour avoir gardé le temps. Vous avez partagé tellement de choses en ces 4 minutes. On vous remercie. Je crois que toutes ces expériences mériteraient vraiment d'être finalement documentées, être dans un document qui permettrait de répertorier ces bonnes pratiques pour pouvoir vraiment pouvoir partager avec les autres leaders traditionnels. Je crois vraiment que ce serait vraiment très utile. Merci beaucoup de ce partage. Now, I would like to turn to Révérend Jimmy Firi from Malawi. I know you're coming the last one. I'm so sorry for that because I know we are running a bit out of time. We are very glad to have you with us. Please, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. I will not take much of your time, but my name is Jimmy Firi. I work with Capital City Baptist Church as the missions pastor. So generally what that means is that I work with different organizations and churches that are that work directly with issues regarding to young people, women, children, and the rest. But also I work with Evangelical Association of Malawi, which is the Christian umbrella organization for evangelical churches and Christians, a Christian organization that seek to mobilize, unite, and equip churches and organizations in communities to be able to be relevant to deal with the issues community are facing. Now, in just a bit of a contribution to issues of girls returning to school, what I'm going to share briefly is what we have done prior to COVID, but also post-COVID with regards to, because the problem of girls early marriages and prepared pregnancies has always been an issue here in Malawi. And so what COVID has done is actually to just kind of increase the numbers. Now, what we have done initially, and I'm going to share what we have done in an area called Nchisi, which is north east of the city that we live in Lilongwe. So what we did was we took pastors. we actually formed like a group. So basically looking at a committee in a community, because what we identified was that every community, people or institutions that are quite influential is the church, the traditional leaders, and the family. So when we put those together, what we did was we took what we call the champions. So these are young people. We have boys and girls in that committee. The reason we brought the girls and the boys, these are teenagers and younger, so that they can give us their own perspective into what are some of the issues that they are facing currently in their time that are hindering them from going back to school. And then we have women, what we call women counselors. So these women counselors, their role basically is to kind of be like the mediators between the parents and the girls or the boys, particularly in this case, the girls, so that they can help women or parents to understand the girl issue that girls are facing, but also to be able to advocate for girls in order for parents and everybody around to understand what girls are dealing with. So these women, they work as counselors, both for the families, but also for girls. Then we have pastors. We included pastors in this team because we wanted pastors to give a Christian perspective into dealing with the same issues that can be dealt with from a psychological point of view or from a cultural point of view, but also to provide the spiritual and moral support to girls that are affected, but also the families. And then we also involved the traditional leaders. Now, the traditional leaders basically are there to provide a cultural perspective into the things that we're dealing with, but also to provide what we call the legal or local legal perspective with regards to the bylaws and everything pertaining to how that is handled in as far as dealing with the issues of concern. So when we brought this team together, it has helped a lot because everybody brings their own perspective into dealing with the common issue. But also the goal there was to actually bring the religious leaders and the traditional leaders together, because this, for the longest time, this has been a hindrance into dealing with the issues that young girls were dealing with, because pastors were looking at it from a different perspective, and then the traditional leaders are dealing with it from a different perspective, and that was not helping because we realized that we're living in the same community, and the battle that we're fighting is common. It's affecting the church, it's affecting the community, it's affecting families. So therefore, bringing that team together has helped a lot in as far as bringing the girls back. Now, a bit of a second question, if I still have some time. So what we did was we got engaged with what we call the district education manager, the district social welfare officer, and then the district labor officer, and then including them in this grouping that I have talked about. So within that, the idea there was to provide trainings to pastors and traditional leaders to understand the legal implication of the denying a girl access to education. So for instance, if the traditional leader in their community, they marry a girl younger, what's the legal implication? If the pastor marries a younger girl, what's the legal implication? So that kind of training and teaching, but also parents, what's the legal implication if a parent forcibly consents to have a girl married at a very young age? What are the legal implications? What the school manager has to say, what the district social welfare has to say, and the labor law has to say with regards to all that. And so when we put that, we found out that actually the chiefs, they put a bylaw that if a girl is married younger in their community, then the chieftainship can be revoked. And so this is something that has been agreed upon. But also if a pastor marries a young girl, then their position in the church can also be revoked. So if parents marry out a younger girl, then there are some laws that the church and the traditional leaders have put together in order for parents to be held accountable. So we have levels of accountable at every level of in dealing with this issue.
Thank you so much, Reverend. Thank you for the good work, the spirit of collaboration. It's once again a very good and positive practice. So we are running a bit out of time. We are a bit worried that maybe the webinar is going to stop in 5 minutes. If it's the case, please relog in the same link. So I would like to now ask our young activist Rebecca Gyumi from Tanzania to speak up if she's connected, to give us an idea of, a youth point of view on how to work together with traditional religious leaders and all maybe what you have heard so far in terms of good practice. Please, Rebecca, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Helen. Good afternoon, good morning, Your Royal Majesties, Highness, main conveners for this meeting, and fellow panelists. I come with you also, acknowledging the national mourning that is ongoing in Tanzania following the demise of our sitting president, Honorable Magufuli. So I will go straight to some of the recommendations after hearing the panelists on how young people from Africa can collaborate with traditional and religious leaders and community leaders in our spaces to ensure that we are able to promote girls' access and retention to education. First of all, I would actually recommend, and I actually think, what we can actually do together is join forces around advocacy for the reforms of policies and laws which perpetuate practices which deny girls access to education. And those practices or advocacy can be, example, championing for the end of child marriages by providing for the minimum age of marriage. We know some of the communities or countries do not have this in place yet, but also a ban on practices such as female genital mutilation and re-entry of pregnant schoolgirls, because we know this has been the barrier for girls to continue or access education in different communities. Also, the provision of age-appropriate sexual reproductive health education and life skills. As we know, this is one of the approach that can also enhance equitable access to education for girls in Africa generally. Another recommendation that I would actually like to put forward is for our leaders and young people to collaborate around community sensitization and dialogues, which promote positive social norms and community investment in girls' education. This can be, for example, looking at how we are able to debunk the myth around menstrual hygiene management, taboos around girls' sexuality and body autonomy, and also taboos around girls living with disabilities, because we know this has been some of the challenges for girls to access education or to remain in school and study. The third recommendation that I would like to put forward is for young people and traditional leaders and religious leaders to see opportunities to partner in the use of new and social media platforms where traditional leaders can leverage the use of technology to engage communities and showcase the importance of girls' education. And I'm sure young people, we are very good at the new and emerging technologies, and we are more than happy to partner in that. The fourth recommendation is to see how we are able to implement community-specific bylaws, which can celebrate and provide incentives, and especially to families or clans, which ensure access to education for all children. And such incentives can be in terms of scholarships or capital to start income-generating activities. The last recommendation that I would like to put forward is for young people and traditional and religious leaders to see opportunity and potential to collaborate in implementing strategies which provide chances for the girls who are out of school as well, due to various reasons. For instance, the former child brides, dropouts. For countries like Tanzania, we know once children have reached standard 7, not all of them transition to secondary school. So we have a lot of girls as well who are out of school. So strategies on how we are going to also provide chances to the girls who are out of schools in terms of vocational training opportunities, or investing in their right to get skills and opportunity to flourish in life. To wind off, I would just like to say, young people from Africa, we are ready to engage creatively, and we've been engaging with our leaders and promote access to equitable quality education so girls can have an opportunity to unleash their potential and contribute in developing our families and communities at large. I believe our collective effort is the best bet we have in ensuring every African girl can access the right to education. I thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. It's good to also hear from you some recommendation. Of course, we have to here today some big influencer in their community, but also at national level, of course. So point well noted, I think, in terms of how joint forces on advocacy, on various points you have mentioned. It seems that we can continue this webinar. I would like to ask you 15 minutes more, if it's okay with you. I would like to thank all of the panelists of the panel 2. Thank you so much, Your Royal Majesty, Reverend Rebecca, for your sharing. I would like to ask Laure if she can share the video from Chief Chamuka from Zambia, who actually was supposed to be on this panel, but was not available to join. And then it's going to be the end of this panel, and I'm going to hand over to the Queen Nana right after this video. Thank you.
Us as a chiefdom, we believe that countering child marriage, for example, the best solution, one, is to keep girls in school, or to keep children in school. And these children should be both boys and girls, because if we leave out the boys, then the boys will continue becoming a problem. So we want to emphasize to the boys and girls that they should treat each other as sisters and brothers, and not to treat each other as wives and husbands.
The closure of schools made people stay away for a long time at home. So we were more like not monitoring their movements. They were so free to do anything. We were not talking to them. So it was almost 4 months away from school. So they were free to do anything. This is the time now we noticed that the girls now were more like pregnant. Had it not been that, we're not going to record. We really fight to record the zero.
I called the parents from different villages, both men and women. I called the head teachers. Okay, I wanted the head teachers to explain why school-going girls were becoming pregnant, and why these girls were in school were being married off. And I wanted answers from the parents why they were marrying off their children, mostly the girls.
Ndakapekwa lifumo kanzi mu grade 10 apandira mu grade 11. So nje ndakapekwa lifumo vakeishi bambama.
So ndi twakeshiwa kwamba uyu mwana wava pakati twakayakulirwa mu community mbo twakambira kwamba amunyufe so mwana wavaso so valo mbo vakesa mukoveshi vishono vachifi mbo vakatuita unoswevo twavandikavo ko kwamba uyu mwana takaliwo aye kuchikolo
vachifi ndo vakanipa kwamba ndichite lifumo vakang'ambirai uliete kuvika manu kuchikolo noti kunovika manu peshi kunokwamba vantu noti kunoyeya wafya kwamba ichikwati shanshani ulakwe wana chindi chikashike nona nkaveleke ndakuvolela kuchikolo alimu na nkavolele nkamanyishe chikolo ntanda nkamanyishe chikolo nkayefya nsemfye ndangopulana kwamba ifika chitike
tutovalumba chanchine vami amfulumende iyo yasuminisha mulawo uyu mwana angu newo chakachanika kwamba kuchikolo nkwakaya walingoya kwamba vana niwamkunonseka nevo vana kuchikolo nkwakaya ndi akaswa kuchikolo wakesa mukutuluita kwamba mayo newo kuchikolo mwandi walingonsunga kavotu avuvotu ndauvona kale kunemba lintu mwana yesu njesha akabeka botu atuka bali mwa moyo ngai omwa kwamba uli mwana tumulameka botu kwamba ali munyina ku chikolo atano yeye amani kwamba mwanangu nato shitani nato batomusunga byani.
When girls are busy with their school, then child marriage is delayed.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Dr. Jacinta Muteshi, for leading us, both UNICEF and UN Women, with the hard facts on COVID-19 pandemic, the solid implications and the good practices that you've been able to share through your panel of both cultural and religious leaders that have shown what is doable and what is possible. I want to end this to say that through the CIEFFA program in Malawi and Zambia, I am aware that that partnership was shown there of different development partners, of governments, of religious and cultural leaders, ability to be able to do this. And in that, we were able to rescue at least 1,200 girls in Zambia and more than 600 girls in Malawi, and all the actors working together through a program. And thank you for the young activist, Rebecca, who has been able to give us strong recommendations of what is doable within this period. Back to you, Queen Nana, for the end of the program closures. And I'm glad to have been your facilitator, co-facilitator. Thank you. You're on mute, Queen. You're on mute.
Sorry. Thank you very much, Madam Philomena. Thank you, Your Royal Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses, directors of UN Women, religious leaders, directors of UNICEF, our young activists, all and sundry. I just want us to pause briefly and soak in all the conversation, the wise counsel, and the powerful engagement with our royalty and religious leaders who have exhibited enough passion at what they do. And ask ourselves one small question. What would have been the situation if all these noble royalties and the many others that we are not seeing here are not in this race? What would have been the situation if UN Women didn't come to put us together into COTLA Contana? What would have been the situation if UNICEF in Ghana didn't create Royal Gaka Champions, a royal group in Ghana that is putting advocacy of the welfare of children and women ahead of their royalties, of their stools, of their positions? What would have happened if royalty was not there to support community? This is amazing. And we want to use this opportunity to thank our partners so much for the work they are doing and continue to do with the royalty. I'm sure you see vividly that your work is not going to vain. Your investments are well protected. And even when we were talking about girls and going back to school, it just prompted me that in Ghana, our own NGO is even taking care of teenage mothers. And as I speak, we have 60 of these girls that we have taken off their homes and re-enrolled back to school. And these girls are giving us amazing success stories that when we have the opportunity next time, I would share with all of us because of time constraints. We have so much going with royalties, inputs in the processes to see to it that our girls are back in school, to see to it that our children are not caught young and given out for marriage, so they can stay in school and be in school and grow to become well-rounded adults. We saw the presentation and we noticed that going to school helps us even position ourselves and good incomes. Obviously, yes, we will earn good incomes. Girls will be girls and they will grow to become women. And not just women who are on their own, women with intelligence, women who would go and bargain for positions, not because they are women, but because they deserve the positions. This is what we are doing. This is the passion we have brought to partner with our development partners so we can move the agenda of child protection, we can move the agenda of SDGs and all the naughty and uncountable things that our people are facing, so we can have a world of modesty, we can have a world of belief, a world of a future for our children, a world of something that our younger ones can look up to, and to have the feel that their traditional rulers, their traditional authorities, their religious leaders are there for them. We are not there anyway because we just want to be in the stool houses. These days, our traditional religious leaders are out there. Look at the kings, look at our queens, look at what they are doing today. Listen to them, their wise counsels. We are blessed. This time of ours is a blessed time, and we want to thank all of you for being part of this process. I think I would call on Prince Adeleke to give us the call to action, and then we can do the final stuff, and we would say goodbye to everybody. But to me, this has been an amazing time with all of you, and I want to thank you so much. If Prince is ready, can we have the call to action, please, in just about 5 minutes?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'd like to appreciate our royal fathers, royal mothers, UNICEF, the AU, CIEFFA, for this opportunity, the call to action. Participants, welcoming the joint initiative of UN Women, UNICEF, and the African Union Center for Girls and Women Education, AU CIEFFA, and the Council of Traditional Leaders of Africa in holding the virtual webinar on community engagement of traditional and religious leaders in Africa concerning the girls' education as part of the virtual Africa Dialogue series with traditional and religious leaders across Africa, applauding the AU CIEFFA dialogue with African traditional and religious leaders on girls and young women's access and retention in educational system held in June 2019 in Uganda. Congratulating the COTLA for their respective engagements to push forward the agenda on girls' education in Africa with the support of UNICEF, UN Women, and the AU. Considering that girls' education is paramount to achieve sustainable developmental goals of ensuring inclusive, equitable quality education and promoting lifelong learning for all children to empower girls and communities and to break the cycle of poverty. Noting with concern that the progress made in girls' education is placed under unprecedented threat due to COVID-19 pandemic and its disproportionate negative impacts on girls' development and agency. Call upon the community of traditional and religious leaders in Africa, African Union, CIEFFA, UN Women, and UNICEF to, number one, encourage traditional and religious leaders from different traditions, kingdoms, and countries to share their experiences and document all best practices carried out by traditional and religious leaders on implementing innovative approaches and cultural transformation for girls and women's education and empowerment, and in particular, during and after the COVID-19 pandemic. Number two, support education authorities to effectively enforce the right of children to education by helping to identify children, especially girls, who have not returned to school or are out of school, and facilitate the dialogue with parents to get these girls back into school or find context-specific alternative pathways in informal education access skills, and by helping to effectively implement laws where they exist that enable pregnant girls and young mothers to go back to school. Number 3, institutionalize this dialogue on girls and women education and establish, formalize, and strengthen the collaboration with local education authorities and parents in view of identifying and removing gender-based stereotypes and social norms, hindering the promotion of inclusive education, finding consensus and contextualizing solutions, and jointly promoting girls' access to school and completion of their education. This will contribute to reinforce COTLA's mission and create synergies with other traditional and religious leaders and key education stakeholders. Number 4, intensify a dialogue with communities on girls' education to tackle cultural and social barriers to girls' access and retention to school, such as child marriage, female genital mutilation, and early pregnancies, and raise awareness during local festivals and celebrations, especially during important moments of traditional culture in favor of girls' education. At the same time, ensuring that traditional rituals and celebrations, including initiation rites, are appropriate for girls' development and are organized during school breaks or holidays periods to avoid impacting on girls' and boys' attendance. Finally, engage traditional and religious leaders as well as other relative actors to contribute on the implementation of the AU theme for 2021 titled Arts, Culture, and Heritage, Levers for Building the Africa We Want. Thank you. Thank you.
Queen Anna, you're on mute. Thank you, Prince Adeleke, for the call to action.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prince, for the call to action. We are getting close to the program, and we would want to recommend that everybody puts his camera or her camera on, Your Royal Highnesses, High Justice, and all officials, so we can have a screenshot. That is the digital version of a group picture when we are supposed to meet in body. So we can have a group shot that show how many people are in the meeting at the moment. And as soon as we are done with that, we are preparing to receive Dr. Rita Busuno, head of AU CIEFFA, for her closing remarks. And also Mrs. Roberta Clark, the Regional Director, UN Women East Southern Africa Regional Office. So it's my recommendation that we take the shot, or we can take the closing remarks before we take the screenshot. I think your agreement will help, Your Royal Highness. Should we take the picture or we take the closing remarks? Because I still see some spaces not filled. So I think we should go ahead and have the closing remarks. So it's my humble request that Dr. Rita will help us with her closing remarks at this moment, please. If you're ready.
Thank you very much, Your Majesty. Your Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses, Mr. Malik Fall, Regional Director, UNICEF, Mrs. Roberta Clark, Regional Director, UN Women, partners, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. As we are closing this meeting, allow me to express my gratitude to Your Royal Majesties, to Your Royal Highnesses, for making the time today to join us in this dialogue and to share positive experiences and actions within your respective communities on accessing, reintegrating, and retention of girls and young women in African education systems. At the African Union International Center for Girls and Women's Education, we have been engaging with traditional and religious leaders for the past 4 years through such dialogues. Your Majesties, your Royal Highnesses, your support, mentorship, and leadership as opinion leaders working at grassroots levels is key to ensuring that girls are protected from gender-based violence, in dissolving child marriages, in driving change and perceptions around child marriages within our communities. Kudos to making such positive transformations in breaking the cycle of poverty, in ensuring that our girls go to school, go back to school, and stay in school. In terms of commitment at this dialogue, we are looking, as has just been said, to institutionalizing this dialogue on girls and women's education, especially as the African Union theme this year is on arts, culture, and heritage, levers for building the Africa we want. We shall continue to engage with you, especially on initiatives to support initiating sustainable change in your communities and to achieve equal opportunities for both boys and girls. We do hope that this meeting has contributed to create more synergies among African faith-based communities in implementing innovative approaches and cultural transformation on girls and women's education. Allow me to appreciate our collaboration to organize this dialogue with the Council of Traditional Leaders in Africa, UNICEF, and UN Women in holding this virtual webinar. Special thanks goes to the COTLA leadership and the traditional and religious leaders who have joined this meeting, as well as their joint efforts in co-organizing this meeting. Once again, allow me to call for your collective voices to resonate and to implement our call of action. Let us take our words beyond the rhetoric and walk the talk. I thank you all. God bless you. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rita. Until we go on to request Mrs. Clark, Regional Director, UN Women, Isaro, to give us her closing remarks as well, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. King Aderemi, Convener General of COTLA, Royal Majesties, members of COTLA, representatives of UNICEF, and in particular, Mr. Fowle, Regional Director, Ms. Rita Bisunoth of the Center for Girls and Women's Education in Africa. I want to especially recognize as well my sister Nayarad Zai, who is the African Union Goodwill Ambassador on Ending Child Marriage. I believe she's been on the call with us from the beginning. I want to say what an informative discussion on community engagement of traditional and religious leaders in Africa for girls' education. This, many of you know, is the fourth in a current series of dialogues, which UN Women has been working on with COTLA since, I think, May 2020. Our main objective of this series was and is to provide a platform for traditional and faith-based leaders to assess actions and recommend further strategies for ending violence against women and girls, and also ending harmful practices in Africa, and in particular, child marriage and FGM. Through these virtual meetings and praises for Zoom, we are strengthening the connectivity and growing the network of advocates for gender equality in Africa. A growing number of traditional leaders are mobilizing across the continent and using their influence to champion transformational change. COTLA members have over and over reiterated their view that tradition should not be invoked to justify violence and or discrimination. COTLA members, traditional leaders, are advocates for cultural progressivism. Today, we heard from the UNICEF Regional Director and from new COTLA members on the barriers to girls' education, the consequences for girls at the individual level and for society as a whole. But also, very hopefully, we heard about the actions which you are already taking at community and country level as leaders. So there has been much progress in closing the gender gap in education, and we thank UN Women and UNICEF colleagues for their PowerPoint presentations. However, dominant social norms that girls are a burden, that dominant attitude, and the lack of agency for girls mean that girls and young women's access, retention, and completion of schooling remains a huge concern across the continent. And these challenges, as we've heard over and over, have been exacerbated during the COVID-19 crisis. School closures across Africa have exacerbated existing inequalities. And we've heard from UNICEF the very chilling estimates of how many girls have not returned to school for the 3 countries that we got, between 10 to 25%. 25%, that's a quarter of all girls who may not have returned to school. And I'm sure that there are also big issues around boys not returning to school as well. I think we can classify this as a crisis. And I think we can agree that we need emergency measures to ensure that vulnerable girls, vulnerable children return to school and avert the tragedy of putting millions of girls out of school permanently. I think it was our colleague from UN Women who said, if this happens, several decades of global progress towards gender equality in education could be lost in a matter of months. I do agree with her perception and this, the urgency of the situation. Since its inception, COTLA members have shown commitment to converting resolutions into action. And this includes through efforts to establish chapters at national and in some cases, district level. And I want to appreciate today and congratulate King Aderemi on the establishment, I think he said, of the Nigerian chapter of COTLA. Very big congratulations to you, King Aderemi, and to traditional leaders of Nigeria. As UN Women, we will continue to prioritize working with COTLA and traditional leaders as an essential element of our Africa strategy. We have so much to do, and this is our message through generation equality and trying to get younger and intergenerational dialogue going, and also young activists mobilized to walk this road with us. This is the moment to amplify our voices. This is the moment to expand our work to change the world for the better for everyone. We recognize the work on protecting girls. We heard it over the last 2 hours. Practical support, such as working to overcome menstrual barriers, provision of menstrual cups, addressing period poverty, very practical solutions such as providing uniforms for girls to go to school, and then more strategic approaches such as ensuring that the codes of conduct and laws prescribe against child marriage. We've heard some traditional leaders dissolving marriages. We've heard about vocational training. We've heard about legislative developments. And finally, we heard from Prince Adeleke, the call to action, the stirring call to action, which reminds us that work has to happen at all levels. Practical work, strategic work, mobilization of parents, mobilization of communities, influencing political and decision makers so that we have the regulatory framework in place. So a call to action and a stirring one, and we commit to supporting COTLA in ensuring that the call to action is translated into that action. In closing, I thank UNICEF and in particular the regional director, but also online with us, wonderful colleague Hélène, and also the Africa Union Center for their partnership. I salute the commitment of our traditional and religious leaders in Africa to upholding women's rights. And certainly I want to also appreciate Sister McKenna for her shepherding of this exercise on behalf of UN Women. There are many people to thank, but I think we can say we have come together. And using the wonderful slogan of King Aderemi, we've come together to cooperate, to operate. I love it. Cooperate to operate. And King Aderemi always has wonderful turns of phrase. So the last one I want to steal from him, and I'm sure he's going to allow me to use his copyright, using the lowest point to be our turning point. I really love that, King Aderemi. Thank you very much for working with UN Women.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Roberta Clark. Thank you for your closing remarks. And before we bring everything to a final closure, I'd like to call on Madam Philomena Mathieu, my co-facilitator, to say her few words before we close finally. Philo.
Medasi, asante sana, zikomo, siabonga, merci beaucoup, webale, thank you. And don't forget the group picture. Don't forget the group picture, please, for the
We
panel.
shouldn't forget the group picture, please. Kindly put your cameras on so we can have a gallery full of participants, please. Your Royal Majesties. Hi, Queen Mabena. Hi, how are you? Queen Mother Best. Hello. It's been a while. We thank God for technology. Hi, King Ufumu. Hello. Greetings from Ghana. His Majesty Queen Adelemi. I think he is not on now. Prince, how are you? Thanks for the call to action. And we need just a few more people. And oh, Kim Mazu, how are you? Bonjour, King. Comment ça va?
Don't ton téléphone pour faire une photo.
Wonderful. So we have about 2 or 3 more. Reverend Jimmy, could you kindly put your camera on so we can have a shot? Otherwise, we can take what we have right now. And then we can just bring it to a closure. So technical, please, could you take the pictures? Laurie, are you okay? Can we continue?
No, just a second, please. Just 1 second.
Okay.
Lo, are you taking the picture?
I have taken, yeah, but
Oh,
let's
okay,
take it,
perfect.
right? Or should we say cheese?
No, sorry, it's okay.
Okay.
So,
That's fine. Thank you so much. On behalf of COTLA Contana, I'd like to say a big thank you to UN Women, to UNICEF, ISARO, to AU CIEFFA, and especially also to our Royal Majesties, Royal Majesties, Royal Highnesses who make time to join this meeting. It's been an amazing few hours, but we are going back home more learned. We are going back home more empowered. We are going back home more energized. And we want to say thank you for all the inputs from everybody, our moderators, Mrs. Yankee, Claire, all the UN Women team, the UNICEF group. We want to thank all of you so very much. And the inputs that was made from the Queens, especially and our chief, is giving me so much hope that there's a lot ahead for our younger ones. And we together, when we come together, will make the world a better place. Thank you all for your participation. Special thanks to King Adaremi Adedapo for the opening remarks, Mr. Mohammed Malik, Regional Director UNICEF for his opening remarks as well, and of course Dr. Rita and Mrs. Roberta for your closing. So we have the beautiful beginning and an amazing cap to go with it, and everything in between was perfect and wonderful. We thank you all. May God bless you all. Asante Sana. The work goes on. Let's get on Ubuntu. Hard work pays. We will get good results. Thank you. God bless
Sorry,
you.
just finishing the COTLA call.
Bye. Thank you.
God bless you. God bless you. Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you all very much. Hi, Helen. Thank you so much. Mrs. Simon, thank you. Bye. Thank you. God bless you. God bless you all.
And thank you to our interpretation team
And
as well.
thank you, Philomena. Thank you. It's been amazing.